In the first part of this tutorial, we created a simple Python script that can split and rejoin files. In the second part, we are going to polish the command line interface by adding commands and arguments using Python click and adding interactivity using questionary. Before we get into coding, I am Rafael, this is Coder Cave, and if you're interested in software development, you should subscribe to this channel. Let's code! The first thing we need to do is to import click in our virtual environment. Once this is done, we can move on to coding. We are going to pick up from where we left off the last time. So click is going to make it easier for us to manage commands and arguments and options in the code. And to use it, we only need to import click. Let's rework a little bit the code. In this code here, we need to decorate the main method as a click group. This is because this is going to be our entry point, basically, and it's going to aggregate all the other comments. Now, the other comments being the join and the split method. So I'm going to decorate join and split with command. And I give it a name. And the name will be join, so that my command in the command line will be join instead of underscore join, and then split, same thing. Okay, now that I decorated those methods as commands, I need to add them to the group. So over here, I add the commands to the group. Okay, now that I have my group and the comments set, I can rework the main method. Here actually I don't need anything, so I will only print that this is the split join file utility, just to have something on the command line. And because I'm using click, I don't need to have sysargv imported in the code. Now, the next thing here is to add options so that we can let the user define which file we want to split, where is the destination, and what's the size of the chunks for the split operation. So to add the options, we need to decorate the split method with click option. And this one will be for the file, so I will call it file -- file, and here I can define a help text. And then I want to also decide the destination. And as a last thing, the size of the chunks. Okay, so in click option, the default defines the default value that is given to the option in case the option is not specified in the command line, and the help is provided to the user when the command is called with -- help. Now, to make them usable, I only need to have some parameters in the method signature. Okay. Now that the user is passing the file, I don't need this code anymore. And here, instead of file to split, I need to verify that file exists. This is a pathlib method. And here I don't open file to split, which is not existing anymore. And file, I will rename this as file stream to avoid conflict with the argument passed to the method. And here again, it's not file to split, but it's f. And f needs to be a pathlib reference to a file, while this file here is going to be a string. So f is going to be path of file. Okay, so now everything should work as expected. Now, the method chunk file now needs to control the destination of the chunks and the size. So I'm going to pass that as arguments. And here I need to make just a few changes to the code. So the first thing, this chunk size defined as a global variable can go, because the only way it's used, it's over here as a control, and now it's parametric. So I drop this thing here and I rename this as size, or not rename, but compare to size instead of that other variable I had before. Then I have the destination. Now the destination is supposed to be a directory. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to reference that with pathlib, and then I'm going to create that directory. So I'm going to use mkdir of the directory, and here I will use a couple options. So parents set to true means that if parents of the folder that I want to create also don't exist, they will be created during this operation. And then I also want exist OK is set to true, so that if the folder already exists, the exception that will be thrown by this method is going to be ignored. So I can use this as an idempotent operation. I don't need to check for the existence of this folder. Then here I know that the folder exists with reasonable accuracy. I need to use the destination as part of the stream to the chunks. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pass destination slash. With that, I create a reference to folder plus the name of the chunks that comply with the convention that we defined in the minimum viable product. All right, now I want to add some options to the join operation. And I want to allow the user of the script to define the source directory of where the chunks are, and also define the name of the file that will be the rejoined file. Now I'm not going to, as a default, I don't define the extension, because the extension of the file will be determined in the code. As I did before, I need to add arguments to the method. And then I'm going to run a quick validation on the directory. I can remove the reference to the current working directory. And I'm going to test that the source directory exists. If it doesn't exist, I will just warn the user and return. Then I only need to modify the destination of the file. So instead of hard coding to join, I will use output. So this is going to use the name that the user defined, and the name can be fully qualified. So with that, we are ready for tests. To test the changes to the script, I am again in the same folder I used for the tests of the first part of the tutorial. So I have the questionary tutorial file, which is 340 megabytes almost. So I'm going to call the script with my latest changes. So I'm calling the split command. The file will be questionary tutorial. The destination, I will send it to, I don't know, chunks. And then the size I want it to be 50 megabytes. All right, the splitting happened. We have a folder called chunks. So if I go into chunks, I see that I have 7 chunks, and they are all below the maximum size that I defined. Now I can also test the join operation. So I moved back to the parent folder. So here I have chunks available. So I will call the script. Okay, so I define the output as new video, and let's see what happened. Here we now have a new file called new video, which has exactly the same size as the original. In the last part of this tutorial, we are going to use questionary to add interactivity to the command line interface. Questionary is a simple library that allows to add some form of interactivity. For this exercise, we're only going to add interactivity to the split method. So the first thing is to import questionary. And then we move on to the split method. So here I'm going to add an option, which is a flag, to signal that I want an interactive mode. So I will do a -i or a -- interactive. Okay, now that we have an option available, we can add code to make things interactive. So the first thing I want here is to check that I already have a file. So I will allow the file to be passed as an option, the rest, but if we go into interactive mode, then destination and size will be decided interactively. So the first thing I want to do here is to make sure that if I don't have a file and I'm not in interactive mode, I have to return an error to the user. Then, if I don't have a file and I'm in interactive mode, I want to offer a list of files in the current working directory. So what this is going to do is this is going to iterate in the current working directory. Every file will be appended to the list of files, and then we will prompt a questionary select that will ask which file we want to split, and will offer a list of files. Now it will offer a list of file names. Questionary can only offer strings. So once the user selects a file to split, we want to reconstruct a pathlib path to the file. So this is why we use the constructor of path. So enough for the file. So this is sufficient for the file. Now, if I'm in interactive mode, I want to also decide the destination, or I want the user to pick the destination and the size. So for the destination, I'm going to use a questionary text. So this is going to be a simple prompt. I'm not adding much validation here, so this is a problem. Here there could be just about anything, but this is going to be transformed in a pathlib path eventually. And then, as a second part, I want to ask the user to select the size of the chunks from a specific list. So here I'm going to give a list of support devices that are of common use. So I'm going to ask the user what chunk size is required, and the chunk size is going to be based on what support will be used to store the file. So a floppy disk, I haven't seen one in at least 10 years. An iOmega zip, I don't even know what's the correct pronunciation of that. In Italy we say Yomega. I don't even know if they are still in business, and I don't know anyone who ever owned a zip device. So hey, let me know in the comments if you know anyone who has this device, or if you owned one of those devices. Maybe a CD or a DVD. So in our list, for a floppy disk, this is going to be 1.4 megabytes. A zip, it was 100 megabytes if I don't go wrong. A CD was 700 megabytes, and the DVD, it's 4.5 gigs if I don't go wrong. So at that point, if the user will select one of those 4 options, and based on the option we define the size of the chunks that we want to use, and this is going to be passed to chunk file. There is one thing that I forgot in the signature of split, and that is a variable for the interactive mode. So now we should be good to start testing. Again, we are in the test folder with one large file. So let's call the split command. And this time let's pass -i for interactive. So now, since we didn't specify a file, the script is offering the files in this folder. Now there is a hidden file, and there is our video. So I'll pick the video, then I need to name a destination. I will call it chunks, and then I get to decide which size our pieces will be. So let's say we want to store that on floppy disks. This is going to be a lot of pieces, a lot of chunks. So here we have our chunks folder that was created correctly. And in chunks, there will be a lot of pieces, a lot of them. And that's because all those pieces are 1.4 megabytes in size. The code for this script is available on GitHub at github.com/codercave/split-join-files. If you want to see the code, the specific code for the steps, you can go to the closed pull requests, and you will have pull request 1 is the MVP. So that's the code developed in the first part of the tutorial. And then the code covered in this video is available on pull request 2 for the CLI commands using click, and the pull request 3 has the interactive code using questionary. With just a few more lines of code, our script is easier to use and a lot more flexible. If you're interested in other bite-sized tutorials, subscribe to this playlist here, and if you haven't done it yet, subscribe to this channel.